pick up quite a few. I think I got 11 species in my room right now. It's 11 or 12. If you want to count Seymour eye, it's 12. I have a straightforward approach. I kind of learned it from Carl Doring. He's the one that got me started in killifish about 30 years ago or whatever. And I kind of go with his approach to doing northos. My basic setup is right here. If you look at it, I don't know if can you see the jar in there? I have like these 5s in a row here. You can see, and there's jars in each one of them. And I have more northos over here. And then as you can see, I got like my Rackaby Brières in this one. I got 4 shy, and I have some that aren't on peat because I've collected enough peat from them already as it is. I've got a tank full of Guntherite Zanzibar right here. But I work with about, it's at least 12. I have my Melipenus over here. I keep forgetting about them. You see them right here. I've got my last hatch, I was male heavy. I think I got 2 females, and the rest of them in there are males. If you can see them a lot better there. They're in that tank. This is my last, but I'm hatching out so many right now. And I also, when I'm raising them up, I put them in these shoe boxes. That's a Patrizii. It's a 4 shy. And that's another Corthausi red. Anyhow, that's I set them all up when I'm hatching them out. I'll put them in these small plastic tubs right here when I first hatch them out with hornwort, because some of them get pretty violent with each other and they'll kill each other. This is what I store my eggs in too. If you look at this, you see the styrofoam box, and you can see all the eggs in it. Those are all Northo eggs, the South American eggs right there. And I have another one up here. I keep them in the styrofoam boxes to keep them out of the light, because somewhere I learned that you're supposed to keep eggs out of the light. Well, I don't really think it makes a difference. I don't want to like go against what anybody says, but I keep eggs out in the light all the time and have great hatches. Like here's how I kind of put them in the bag, and I put the what it is. That's Corthausi yellow. I got the date on there that I pulled, and I got the date I'm supposed to hatch. I got a master list from Carl Doring about 15 years ago that has all your northos on it. It's an older list, and it kind of gives the incubation at what temperature. And the higher the temperature, the faster the egg will eye up, and the lower the temperature, the longer it takes. And I have that list. If anybody ever wants that list, I can always get it to them too. But that's what I store them in. I've got a temperature gradient of like 80 up here, and it goes about 2 or 3 or 4 degrees with each time you go down, and I have 4 layers. I've been storing all my eggs up here on top where it's 78 to 80 most of the time, and I usually get 50-50 hatches out of everything. That's been the standard of practice. I just hatched out a Palmquesti from Carl Doring. It was the last of his line that I think anybody has. And I kept it up there in the box, and for years I've been getting a 50-50 hatch. I've been getting hundreds and hundreds of fry. I've distributed these fish all over. This tank right here, I hatched out 2 bags of peat, and if you can look in there, you can see I got all females. So I was reaching for male, so I can keep that line going, because that was the fluke there. That was when I got all females. And I've been raising that fish right there for 30 years and never had this happen to me. And all of a sudden Carl's out. I've distributed probably 300 pairs of these fish, and I can't find anybody that's got a aquarium strain Palmquesti thus far, because all those females up in that tank are ready to go. I keep all my Northos, I keep them in hard water. It's pretty much my tap water that's had the dechlorinator put in it, and the chloramine taken out of it too with that liquid. I usually let the water set for a day. And these orange buckets right here around my room. and I keep hard water on one side and soft water on the other. But anyways, I do all my Northos in regular tap water that has been treated, and the water sets for 24 hours. And in my hard water, I live right next to Lake Michigan, so it pretty much goes from 130 parts per million to probably 190. But as I found with Northos, after doing them for so many years, they really prefer the harder water to breed in and to live in. I've tried keeping. I've done little things where I've tried to put them in soft water and stuff, and it never works out. They usually get ick or they get some kind of disease and die. And as of recent, I had one tank, and it was this 4-shy tank right here. The fish, this line of 4-shy got it, and it was from a man over in the Netherlands, who sent me a lot of fish, and that is the first line that I've ever had a problem with. And I've been listening to a couple people it'll ride in on the peat also. So I have been salting all my tanks with a teaspoon of salt and haven't seen it since. Have had no problems, 0 problems, which I had before, but I just didn't want it going anywhere in my room, and it hasn't, and I have not seen it since. But I treat everybody with a teaspoon of salt just for precautionary measures. And I've had no problems since, and it hasn't done anything to my egg production or anything. So that's another thing I just started doing, and I've been raising Northos for like 30 years, and I have never had a problem until I got eggs. That's a new tank. That tank, and it's not cross contaminated with any of my other tanks. This 4-shy is all by itself, and it has its own hose. But I've never had any cross contamination. But I've always been able to pride myself that these people say, "Oh, we got to treat them with salt because we get this funk and stuff on Northos and eggs and stuff." And I've been prideful enough to say that I've never had a problem. So all of a sudden, I get like 5 batches of eggs from the Netherlands, and out of the 5, I hatched all 5 bags, and that was the only bag that had a problem. So prophylactically, I do salt in all my Northos now, just to keep it good. And I've never had another problem. I usually hatch out
1 teaspoon per gallon, 1 teaspoon per 5 gallons.
1 teaspoon per 5 gallons.
Okay.
And I use Instant Ocean. That's what I use on all my tanks, and like I said, the problem's gone and it hasn't come back. These little I'm trying to see if you can see, this is where I hatch my fish out, and it's on the bottom shelf, and I'll put the peat in one of these shoe boxes, and I'll fill it up to like right here, as you can see, right into here. Pour the peat in there, and let it set for a day or so. Usually, by the time I turn the lights on in the morning, about an hour after I turn the lights on, I usually get phenomenal hatches. I've never really had a Northo that has given me a bad hatch. I'm trying to think. The only one that has, I got, if anybody does aquavid, the seller from Krill is his name, and I know a lot of people know him. This fish right here is the only fish that I've had problems with that I've gotten from anybody. It's the first generation that I did, I had a male and a female and a jar and a 2.5, and that might have been my problem. So I'm moving them out. I'm going to put 2 females to a male. I'm going to try and put those in a 5-gallon with a jar and see if that works better for me. And as far as all the rest of the Northos I've ever done, like the real easy one, the Gunther here, super easy fish. I always get tons, and I put the jar in there, put the peat in there. I pull it every 2 weeks, and I put the eggs up on that shelf, and I put it in the bag, put everything on there, and within 3 weeks, I always get 200 fry hatch out, which I can never use that many, so I wind up feeding them to other fish, until I get down to a manageable level that will fit in a 5-gallon, and they won't kill each other and eat each other. And so that's usually what I wind up with. I also do another thing I learned from Carl Doring. He always burped his eggs. I burp my eggs every 2 weeks. I'll styrofoam container. I'll pull the bag out. I'll open the bag up. I'll shake the peat, and then I'll close the bag back up. And he just told me that's a good way for eggs to survive. Gives them air. You have better hatch rates, and it's worked for me. And like I said, I don't know if very many people do that. He told me to do that, and everybody knew Carl Doring and what a great Northo breeder he was. And I've been doing it since, and I always get great hatches. I usually feed my Northos.
That means Carl's no longer with us.
What?
Yeah.
Yes, that means Carl is no longer with us.
I was just gonna say, did he pass on?
No. He's living back in his house right now. I talked to Mark the other day. He's back in his house, but he's not raising any fish. He's having a lot of what do you want to say? He's getting a little bit of slight dementia, I think, and he's not able to change the water, get up and down the stairs as good as he used to his basement where his fish room is. So yeah, he's still around, but he's just not keeping fish anymore. And as soon as Tom Keene, I started keeping a lot more Northos as soon as I heard about Tom Keene passing away, because he was a big staple for Northos in the hobby too, and he's gone. And so that's why I'm keeping so many Northos, because it seems like everybody wants to keep the pretty Aphysemians and nobody wants to keep the soil spawners anymore. I mean, they're a lot more work per se, but I find them just as rewarding. And I keep a few South Americans too, as far as soil spawners go. But I really like Northos, and like I say, I kind of do it for Carl.
That's some more bacon in there to a crisp.
Hmm?
Find some bacon in there to a crisp. I want it.
And that's why I do it. I feed my Northos every morning, whether big or small. I always feed them in the morning, baby brine shrimp.
Well,
That's like a staple for them. I don't feed any other live food. I feed them a normal diet that I feed everything. I feed them small bloodworms. I feed them adult brine shrimp. I also occasionally I give them some really small mysis shrimp, but that's pretty much their diet. In the summertime, of course, I have an abundance of mosquitoes, and I put buckets out for mosquitoes, so I do feed them mosquitoes in the summer. But I don't notice any difference in egg production between a live food and the frozen food. I don't find any difference at all. Try to go through my head here more about them. I really do. I'll keep them in these containers when I start out with the hornwort. Some of your smaller ones, like Patrizii, you usually have to give them some vinegar eels to get them started, or put them in a container like this with sphagnum moss. Put some flake food in there about a week or two before you're going to hatch them. This is what I use. I use that spirulina, just flake food. I put a couple pinches in there, and within 4 or 5 or 6 days, you got paramecium pretty heavy in the container. So the smaller Northos, I will do that for. But I always start them out in these. And if you can see the fry in there, I graduate them to here. It's not optimum the way I'm doing it right now. Usually when they get this size, you can see them starting to get color. I move them to a 5-gallon, and because if you keep them in those containers too long, you kind of stunt their growth, and a lot of them will have crooked spines or other defects if you keep them in those small tubs too long. So it's usually a good idea when they get, say you start having one sex out and you can start seeing colors on the males. It's a good time to throw them into a 5-gallon tank, just so they grow, because they do throw off hormones, which stunts growth of others. And as we all know, doing Killies, you always have that big male, and you always got those itty bitty little males and females that follow in blue Glarus broods, which I do a ton of. Trying to think other stuff for Northos. I find it as a straightforward fish. It's probably one of the easiest fish you're ever going to do. You just put Pete in there, you give them the food, and they're gonna lay the eggs. I know a lot of people count eggs and when they dry out the peat, they kind of roll it and count eggs and stuff. I don't do any of that. I will get one of the fine brine shrimp nets like this, and I will get the jar directly out of the tank. I will take it to my sink. I will pour off the top water, and then I'll put a little bit of cold tap water in there, and I'll pour it into that net. In that net, I'll take my both hands and I'll put my hand over the top and squeeze the net, just, fairly firm for probably about 10 to 15 seconds. And when the water's, and when I think there's enough coming out of there, I don't use, people say, make it the consistency, the wetness of chewing tobacco or whatever. I just squeeze it off for a good 10 to 15 seconds so there's no more water really coming out of it. I'll bring it in my room. I'll prep a plastic bag. I'll put the name of the fish on it. I'll put the pull date and when it's supposed to hatch. And I'll let it set there for a second on a towel. Let it drain just a little bit more, probably for about another 5 minutes while I'm doing more maintenance. And then I'll plop the peat into the bag. Usually I'll look in the bag. I'll kind of like separate it so it's not a clump anymore. So it's kind of, it's loosely in the bag. And usually I look in there for eggs. Sometimes you can't see them. Sometimes you can. I always look. It's what I've always done. And I'll shake it off, then close it. I usually don't close it so there's no air in it. I usually close it so there's just a little bit of air in there because they are eggs and they do breathe. And that's one of the reasons Carl told me why you would burp them every 2 weeks. And that's what I do. And I have a lot of success with Northos. Right now I got like 3 different lines of Corthausi red, one out of Europe. One I got from, I think his name is Clay Crawford here in the States. And then I got a Corthausi line from the Netherlands, it's called Mafia Island, but it's a Corthausi red with a lot of white around the fins. I do Corthausi yellow. I do Forshai Tanzania 97.7. I do Forshai, that's a Saga location, SOGA. I do Forshai Tanzania 17. I do Eger's Eye Red. I do Rackavai, just the aquarium strain. I do Rackavai Briere. I do Ortho Rude Weldicant. I'm keeping that fish because it just passed away 2 months ago. I also keep this Forshai Manca Rouge, Tanzania 1920. I think Krill just collected this out of Tanzania like last year. I also keep Zanzibar. I also keep Melapenis. I also keep Patrizii, which is the Mazlumli Creek, K9623. And let me see if I missed anybody. I think that's it. I think that's all I'm raising right now. I like I said, I'm trying to keep the Northos going in the hobby, so I'm kind of like keeping the what do you want to say, the core species as far as I was concerned. Forshai, Palmquesti, both Corthausis, Patrizii, and Guntheri. No, that's I guess back in the day when I first started all this, so that's what they kind of called the core species. And that's the ones I'm keeping right now. I don't go for any color. I just picked up a Eger's Eye Blue from Paul Pierre. I'm gonna start doing those. It's a really nice one. I really don't have any blue Northos, so I want to try to get those going. And if you've seen the list of the MKA, the fall list that we put out, probably I think the Corthausi yellow, red, and the Guntheri, they're all mine. I think Keith keeps a couple. But that's about it for our club. Not too many people keep Northos. So, like I said, I'm trying to keep them going so they're at least available in the hobby. Just like people, keep South Americans going. I've only got like 4 or 5 of those. I've got some Fundlopanchics, and I do a ton of chromes. I do like 12 chromes, and everybody knows that I do a whole bunch of blue Galaris. But basically, that's pretty much how I do Northos. I raise them in the same water that I hatch them out in. You see it, I put the peat in the tub. It's usually 24 to 48 hours late. I start getting fry. My way of pulling the fry out of the hatching container, I don't leave them in there very long. I usually pull them within 24 to 48 hours. One of these plastic tubes, I'll suck the fry up one by one. I'll put them usually in like one of these clear containers with a little bit of water from the tub where they're hatching out of, and then I'll transfer them or dump them into my smaller plastic containers. Like, this is how I do all my fry. You can see all the different size containers. I've probably got about 40 or 50 fry raising areas in my fish ring. I mean, I even got them like here, anywhere I can put where I can have fry hatching out. That's how I do it. And it's like I said, it's a pretty straightforward fish. We should keep more of them because, as you know, everything, climate change, Africa, they're going to start disappearing here shortly, and the only ones that are going to be alive is the ones we're keeping in our tanks. Any questions about Northos? I should say that.
Bryon, I noticed that you have spawning mops in each tank also.
Yeah.
Is that just for hiding places or for them to actually spawn on, or how does that work?
No, that's hiding places, because if you don't provide a lot of these Northos, some are pretty calm, like the Corthouse yellows. That's a pretty calm fish. If you don't give them that, a lot of these Northos, the male will kill all the rest of the males in the tank and just leave the females. And sometimes he'll kill all the females. If I could go back through my tanks right here, I think I look at down here at the bottom of my Forshai Tanzania 17.9. I'm seeing one dead male on the bottom right here. So even if you got mops in there, if you got an overabundance of males in any one tank, like this tank is got too many males in it. If you can look around there, you see the red tails. If you have too many males in there, they're going to kill them. So yeah, I put spawning mops in every single one of my Northos just to keep the males and the females with a place to hide. So, the males drive them, the females pretty hard. So yeah, like here's another Forshai. If you look right down there, you can see that dead male right there. I'll pull a lot. I get a lot of these, like that Forshai right there. I got this from Europe. So when I hatched it out, I probably got about 8 females and the rest are males. And the males will kill each other off. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that unless you plan on selling them. Because, I mean, they're just culling each other and you're only keeping the strongest fish, which is no problem. But yes, I put mops in every single tank I have. And a lot, the funnel pan chicken and the epicemians, that's to lay eggs in. But the Northos, that's just to hide, to keep, from them from killing each other off.
Any advantage to doing mops as opposed to Java moss or live plants?
Nope, I do hornwort in some instances. I'll use hornwort. There's no difference. I mean, it's usually, guys talk about, as long as you keep males out of line of sight of each other, as long as they don't see each other, they're not going to kill each other. But I mean, when you're talking about, I do a very large volume of fish, so it's a little bit harder for me to do it than most people. I've probably got 170 glass tanks, and I've probably got about 60 or 70 plastic shoe boxes and those little pretzel plastic containers I use to raise my fry in. So I run out of room really fast, because I also raise probably about 1,000 to 2,000 blue galaris all at the same time too. And I've got them spread out in 20s and stuff. They have to have a lot more room. But yeah, anything works as long as they're not in line of sight each other. You'll be fine. They won't kill
What about
each other.
simply bigger tanks? What about fewer bigger tanks, like 20s and 30s instead of 5s?
Well, as soon as my grandkids get old enough and I can knock out, there's a wall right there. As soon as the grandkids get big enough so they don't need a playroom when they come over to my house, I got 7 grandkids. As soon as they grow up, I'm going to have about another 20 feet of fish room. Will solve my problem. I plan on setting up the cinder block 4x4 kind of fish room and try to go 3 high. And that's in here in the near future. I'm retiring like in 4 years. By the time I retire, that's what I want to do. I want to have 300 or 400 tanks going. I'm not going to go hog wild and like try to get every kind. I just want to keep what I got going right now going. I don't have aspirations of like opening a fish breeding facility. I do it because I enjoy it, and as like all the rest of us, we know they're disappearing. So I raise a lot of fish. Any other questions?
What type of peat do you use and how do you prepare it?
Oh, I use that's a good point. I forgot about that. I use Canadian what is it called? It's called Canadian peat moss. It comes in a big bale and it's usually in a white and green container, and I usually get it at Menards. And I'll store it out in my shed. And whenever I'm running low on peat for my tarantulas or my soil spawners, I will I got a metal pot upstairs that's just used for peat. I'll fill it up 3/4 of the way. I'll bring it in the house, and I got one of those sprayers on my sink, and I'll turn the water on hot, and I'll spray that peat down until most of it's wet, and the level of the peat's almost like within an inch of the top of the container. I usually let that set for 1 day, and then I will put it on the burner, and I usually boil it twice, and I usually wait until it comes to a boil. Sometimes I just forget about it, and I'll come back like 15-20 minutes later and go, oh crap, the peat's boiling, and I'll turn it off, and then I'll do that 2 or 3 times. And as soon as that's done, I usually let the peat set for a day, and then I will get one of those small, like I said, one of these. I got some bigger brine shrimp nets, and that's usually I'll go in there with the brine or the brine shrimp net, pull the peat out, I'll run it underwater to get all the small stuff out of it, and then I'll squeeze the water out and I'll throw it into a container, which I have 2 or 3 containers of peat going all at once. And before I put it in the tank, so it doesn't cloud up, make the tank messy, I usually put it back into a regular fish net, and I'll run water over it for like a minute or 2, which gets all that real fine particulate of the peat. And so by the time I put it inside of the jar, which I'll put out here on the top of my 20-gallon tanks, and before I put it in there, I'll pre-fill it with water. I'll put water all the way to the top and wait for that to all settle until the water starts looking clear, and then I'll reinsert it back into the tank. But that's how I do my peat. That's the way Carl did it. That's the way I do it. I know a lot of people are using that, what do they call it? Cocoa fiber or whatever it is. And I haven't heard anybody complain about it. And I've got a lot of eggs in cocoa fiber, so I don't think that's a bad thing. Or I know a lot of people use it. I just use peat. I think it's got a lot of what do you want to say, medicinal and minerals in it for the fish, because I've never used cocoa fiber, so I can't say that it's not a good thing or a bad thing, but I just always use peat. That's what Carl did. That's what I do. And a lot of times when you're putting the eggs into their depousal period, as everybody knows, that peat is acidic and it kind of stops fungus or anything like that happening also. That's the way I've always done it. Any other questions?
How long do you rotate your peat in and out of the aquariums? How long will you let a jar of peat sit in each aquarium?
I do it every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks I'll pull the peat, and I go through the process, and I use the same jar in each tank. I don't want to cross-contaminate any tanks and use jars in other tanks. So once a jar is used in a tank, it's with that tank for the rest of its life. So yeah, I'll do it every 2 weeks. I went as far as a month before. I brought like, it must have been Keith Cook. He took the fish from me. I left a jar of peat and some Racovide Briere, and I had like 5 females and a male. and I literally hatched out like 500 or 600 rack vibraire, and I took like 2 big bags. There must have been 200, 300 fish. I took them to the club and just gave them to people because I was being overrun with them. So I haven't kept that fish in a minute. So I'm trying to get that fish going again because that's kind of disappearing too. So every 2 weeks, that's how long I'll do the eggs. No, I trash it. I'll get the peat and I just trash it off. I usually dump it in a bucket and I'll take it out and put it in the garden because I don't use it twice. I've gotten a lot of eggs from Europe, and you can tell these guys that reuse the peat and not on the same species. So you'll hatch out. I've got some peat from some people overseas, and I've got like 3 different species of fish out of 1 bag of peat hatch. So no, I don't do it. It gets trashed. It goes in the garden. Yeah, that could happen actually. Yeah, but I mean, I get really good hatches, so there's no need to reuse it. You know what I'm saying? It's fairly cheap, and I usually keep like 2 or 3 bales, so it's not a problem.
What South Americans do you keep?
I got some minimus right now. I have. I'm going to show you the name because I cannot do justice by this name, and it's it's super long. So let me put it on a tank and I'll show you guys because I cannot. Can you read that?
A little closer, baby.
Hoptolibius.
Hypsilebius.
Mediopapulatus. Yep.
Yes, there you go. That's one I keep. Yeah, some people make it sound easy, and I'm just not that literate. I keep those 2. I'm trying to think about in my room here. Costancia, of course. You know, since that location is supposedly gone, I keep Costancia. It's a nice fish too. I mean, it's probably should be a beginner's fish like Corthausi yellow for South Americans. And I got a couple bags of peat from a friend of mine, which Bryon Nelson. Does anybody know Bryon Nelson? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got some. I've been looking for Broker Mani. I got some of that from him, and I got some FASURI and 2017. Yeah.
Ori.
Yep. And I got those 2. I used to have Zanatas, Ponier, and what was the other one?
What was that one with the F, Bruce? You pronounced it with your hand over your mouth.
Four-eye?
Yeah, 4-eye. 4-eye. Yeah, that's
what's the genus?
It's
Hypsilebius.
Hypsilebius. Okay. Thank you.
Hypsilebius. Yeah.
You no longer have Sinopacilus, right?
No. I have this one. I forgot about these guys right here. Can you guys see that name?
Nigrofasciatus.
Yeah, it looks like Nigrofasciatus.
Sinopacilus. This is Sinopacilus.
Yep, that's what it is. It's a real close relative of Brucei. I got those from Shane out on the West Coast.
Shane Essery.
Yeah, he was doing tons of really nice small South Americans, and he got in that motorcycle accident and he kind of dropped them all. That was one of them I kept. I had a real problem last time. I got all males and like 1 female, so that's why there's a 5-gallon on the floor because they prefer colder water with 3 females and 1 male. And I'm really hoping I get eggs out of these guys. It's a beautiful little fish. It looks almost like a Brucei with a little bit of a color difference. And I'd really like to keep that going, but like I said, I've got a full fish room, and what happens, I guess. Yeah, that's all the South Americans I keep. I used to keep a whole bunch more, and the blue Gularis kind of outgrew everybody. So, I've got like probably over half my tanks have blue Gularis in them. That's my favorite, and that's the one. To me, that's the one that needs a lot of help because not a lot of people are keeping blue Gularis. I mean, they keep them in their tanks. Not a lot of people breed them. And that's all the South Americans I do.